President Rodrigo Duterte on Tuesday orders the Philippine National Police to reinstate the war on drugs. But the police will play a limited role this time around. Duterte orders smaller police task forces, aside from the military, to implement the drug war. Duterte wants the new task forces to be composed of cops with no history of corruption.
I have ordered to recruit young men in the PNP who are imbued with the fervor of patriotism to be the members only of the mga task forces. Every station should have one. Pero yung piling-pili, yung walang mga kaso at walang history ng corruption.
Duterte says this is because the military will handle other conflicts, like the offensive against the New People's Army and terrorists in Mindanao. The military promised to create a task force of 500 soldiers to join the government's war on drugs. Duterte's decision comes a month after he stopped the war on drugs in the aftermath of the murder of a South Korean businessman by cops in the guise of a drug bust. Neophyte Senator Manny Pacquiao says at least 15 senators, including Senate President Coco Pimentel, planned the ouster of their Liberal Party colleagues at his house in Makati City. Senate Majority Leader Tito Soto confirms the meeting, saying the LP group and minority senators Ralph Recto and Cheese Escudero weren't there. Soto says they discussed the blurring of the lines, how many times they voted and sided with the minority, how many of us were not pro-administration but not anti-administration. He adds, at least Ralph and Cheese were supportive of legislative agenda. On Monday, Drilon, Pangilinan, Aquino, and Hontiveros were stripped of committee chairmanships. The LP allied senators opposed several policies under the Duterte administration, such as the hero's burial of the late dictator Ferdinand Marcos, the war on drugs, and the proposed revival of the death penalty. Pangilinan and Aquino earlier said Malacanang had a hand in the revamp, which presidential spokesman Ernesto Abella denied. Pacquiao says the majority senators only want to do their jobs. He adds the revamp was necessary because they felt betrayed by their LP colleagues. Pacquiao says, quote, "We didn't know that our enemies were backstabbing us because they were our colleagues." Pangilinan also slams Senate President Pimentel for saying LP senators hampered the Senate's legislative agenda. Pimentel earlier said there were instances where the majority, instead of closing ranks, ended up divided. But Pangilinan says 20 of 29 bills nearing approval into law are sponsored by LP senators. Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez reminds Environment Secretary Gina Lopez that leading a government agency isn't the same as waging a crusade. Dominguez was asked if he believed Lopez would be good for government and should be confirmed by the Commission on Appointments. He says, quote, "Being secretary is not like being a crusader. Being a secretary is balancing the needs of the different sectors in society." Crusader is a term of endearment President Rodrigo Duterte often uses to refer to Lopez. The president supports Lopez's decision to close mining operations which don't comply with environmental standards. Dominguez is opposed to Lopez's decision to shut down 23 mining operations and suspend 5 others, citing its impact on investor climate and employment. President Rodrigo Duterte on Tuesday meets an 8-year-old Abu Sayyaf kidnap victim in Malacanang a day after he was released. Romoc and his parents, Elmer and Nora, were kidnapped in Zamboanga, Sibugay on August 2016. Nora was released in August while Elmer was freed last November after a ransom of 1 million pesos each was paid. The boy was released by the bandit group in Sulu after 6 months in captivity. The ASG on Sunday beheaded German Jürgen Kantner after the deadline for a 30 million peso or $600,000 ransom lapsed. The heir to the Samsung empire and 4 other top executives are charged with bribery, embezzlement, and hiding assets overseas in connection with a corruption scandal that led to South Korean President Park Geun-Hye's impeachment. The presentation of formal charges against Lee Jae-Yong and his colleagues makes it almost certain they will face trial. The arrest comes at a time when South Korea's biggest business group seeks to recover from the embarrassing recall of its smartphone Note 7. 3 of the 5 Samsung executives already resigned from their positions, but not Lee. Park's confidant Choi Soon-sil is accused of using her close ties with the South Korean president to force local firms to donate nearly $70 million to nonprofit foundations, which Choi supposedly used for personal gain. Samsung was the single biggest donor to the foundations.